just get your mind together and come on across to me.
Well, we're all ready to leave first thing in the morning. The sunrise is at 5 o'clock and the high tide is just before that. And so we're going to get up at 4:22 and we should be off just after the high tide. I've done all my passage planning. What we're going to do is, you'll see on the map, there's this is a peninsula, I think it's called the Limb Peninsula, that sticks out, and we're at the end of that peninsula. And then below it there's another peninsula with St. David's Head. St. David's is on it. And we're going to go round the corner. We're going to sail from one peninsula into the channel and go right round and come round the corner to the exact same place on the other side. It's called Bardsey or Bardsey Bay, the bay. And we're going to park up in the corner of the bay and get the similar shelter that we're getting here, because the wind's prevailing the same way and we need the same kind of shelter from the north, from the east, northeasterlies and so on. And so that's the plan. And we've got everything ready to go. We've sorted the problem out with the engine. I found out what it was actually. And there's a drain cock on the carburetor float bowl. And I figured that if you turn the fuel off and just let it all be used up out of the carburetor, that all the fuel would be out of the carburetor, so you wouldn't need to drain the carburetor and therefore risk contaminating the environment. So I hadn't been draining the carburetor, and so what I did was I ran the fuel out and I checked, and if you open the tap, there's fuel still in the fuel bowl. So what happens is then you turn over to petrol and you get a mixture of kerosene and petrol in the float bowl, and that causes a problem of not being able to start. So these are very difficult starting. And so I'm going to have to drain the float bowl every time I start it. So that's okay, because I'm going to have to get a pipe that runs it back into the kerosene tank, so that, or into a bottle or something, so that we can preserve it and not just be pouring it out into the ocean, so to speak. Okay, and I just tried starting it now with an empty float, after I drained it and turned the petrol on, and it started second pull with a little bit of throttle and full choke. So the next person coming on for me, that's what you need, a little bit of throttle, full choke, and as soon as it starts, push the choke in and just adjust it a little bit on the throttle, and you're up and going really well, easily. So I'm hoping to have fully reliable starting from here on out. And the name of the place I'm going to, you can see, I don't know what you can see from the camera position there, but I've got a route in that takes us from the peninsula, there's a Lane Peninsula, all the way across the Cardigan Bay and round here into Bardsey Bay, and the place is called Solva. It's near Solva. I don't intend to go into Solva Harbour. I'm going to Solva and park in this little bay here. You see how protected it is with the islands on one side and the mainland, and it's quite a nice anchorage. I'm hoping it is. And there's also a wreck somewhere in this vicinity, I notice. Can't find it now, but oh, there it is. In 9 meters there's a wreck over here, and so that'll be good to try wreck fishing. I haven't been wreck fishing yet, so I'm hoping to catch a nice decent sized fish, because we're running out of food here. I haven't been feeling like fish, and I haven't been catching fish, because you can only eat so much fish, then you need to give fish a rest. But by the time I get there and catch my next one, I'll be ready for some more fish. Keep our fingers crossed. Okay. Well, what we're using here is Windy to see what the weather forecast for the wind is all about, and you can see at the moment it says 16 knots is what it's doing here, and you know, it has been, it's up and down up to that sort of speed we've got going on here, and I'm sure it's pretty constant 16 knots out there. And so there's two things that can happen to us when we're sailing out of here, because I found that last time you can become becalmed as well as have too much wind, and so we've got to watch out for both of those things. And if we put windy on play here, you'll see what happens. Now it's going through time, 11 knots. See, the wind's changing, it's getting lighter, but the green area is good as where we're going. That's on Monday now, 8 o'clock. Now it's dropping off. You see, if we go too late, we end up becoming becalmed here. So we want to be on this side of the arrangement, so to make sure we get this wind and we don't end up stuck in this becalmed area over here. And you know, you see later on the day it's moving. Then it becomes a patch over here. It's a bit calm. So, but we're now into Tuesday, and so you can see it's been a bit challenging to work out exactly the right time to leave, but I have decided that it's, because it's only doing 4 knots now, that's nothing, it's probably not, it's not doing any, it's not blowing at all, and so you wouldn't even get out of here on that, and it's a long way to drive to get into some wind, and we don't have the petrol for that, and also the time, we're going to kind of like, well, I suppose if you travel at 4 knots on the petrol it's okay. I don't want to do that. I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to carry enough fuel to do that. Kerosene is what I'm using. Okay, so we've got our passage planned, but we've also got another passage, 2 other passage plans as well. If we did get becalmed, we've got another route that'll take us to Abadaron, which is over here, and there's another route if we think that it's going to take us too long or get too difficult, then we can pull into Fishguard, which is over here, and not go around the corner. So there's where we're going, in that little bay there. But if we pull into Fishguard there, so I've got a route planned in the Fishguard, and I've studied the harbour details and everything at Fishguard. I've studied the anchoring facilities at Abadaron, and I've studied the anchoring and facilities and the port facilities in St. Bride's Bay. So we're all ready, we're planned up. And then you've got to go with your intuition. Now, if I feel like going, I'll be going. If I get up all excited to go out there and sail, I'll be going. But if I get up with any kind of fear inside me, I'm just not going to go. If you've got to respect your fear is telling you something. So it's going to be a fairly challenging sail tomorrow, I feel. Or it could just be perfect, because if we just hit the edge of that light bit, we might get like 11, 12 knot winds all the way and have a wonderful time of it. But there's still going to be some sea out there because of the wind that we've had. But it may overnight if it calms down, but it isn't, you know, like it's blowing out there. It's blowing out there now. See, 15 knots. It's blowing out there now. All waves over there. So if we get calm, we're not going to get any calm. It's going to be a bit choppy, but you know, 15 knot chop. So the maximum you're going to get is about 1 metre swell. So I hope. I'm not an expert by any means. It's a long time since I was an expert. I was an expert once, but you know, I was an expert in only the area that I was a charter fisherman, and I just fished this one area that I knew like the back of my hand. I'd been all over it. I knew it all. You know, I could sail it by marks on the hillside and stuff like that, put myself onto fishing spots. For marks, I was trained by an old islander, you know how to do this. This is completely different. The whole world has changed. It's all modern avionics and stuff like that now. You've got to be with the program, you know. Oh, you'll see this one. I set this up So I've got a bearing in here too, and this one has got a nice road to drive to. You can have various settings on here, so I'm going to have this a bigger map on here and a smaller, more detailed map on there, and so I can sort of follow both really, see that this is working properly, because it's necessary to have a number of sources of navigation. I mean, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, another phone, so I've got four devices. And one of the things that people don't realise is how important to have spare cables, and I haven't really got enough spare cables, so I treat my cables with like absolute gold. You know, I make sure that I don't tread on them or abuse them or get any water on them whatsoever, any salt water near them, because that can just mess them up completely. So yeah, so these are all ready to go. My internet connection is running through the phone here, so this is powering my internet connection, and it's uploading a video at the moment. It takes ages to upload from here. It's uploading a video, and episode 7. This is recording episode 8 now, which is the road south. Okay. You can see our battery's getting a bit hammered now because we've got all the stuff going, so I'm actually going to turn this off. See, it's come up, it came up 0.4. That probably uses a little bit of electricity, so I'll turn it off now for the evening, and I'm going to pack everything away into my grab bag now so that it doesn't fall all over the place, and then we'll be all ready for the off early in the morning. Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to take some footage on the way. Thanks for watching. Just having a nice relax, waiting for the sun to go down, get an early night's sleep. Everything's ready for the off in the morning. Just the last bit of light. Next morning, we're just getting ready for the off. It's a beautiful morning too. We're going to sail straight out of there and heading for Fishguard. Well, we were going to Fishguard initially, but we did end up diverting to Fishguard. As you can see, there's not an awful lot of wind. Hopefully there'll be a bit more further out. We're having our good breakfast. And a cup of hot soup. And here we go, we're off. Have to motor out a bit, get into the wind a little bit more. It's a little lumpy. I hope you can see the waves there. This is This is Bardsey Island. I think by now we've turned back. We're going around Bardsey Island, I think. What happened was we just couldn't get sailing to where we wanted to sail, and we just got sucked off to one side, and so what I decided to do was try to sail back into Abadaron Bay, but I couldn't sail back because the current had got me. The current was heading like 2 or 3 knots straight into the sound there, and so I just went with the current, and I ended up sailing right the way around Bardsey Island and out the other side again, which was really nice. It was beautiful conditions, and this just managed to add enough hours to the trip to allow the wind to come up a little bit more, and then we were fine. We were heading for Fishguard perfectly on a broad reach, which eventually turned into a straight downwind sail, and it was going some knots too. We were doing 5 to 6 knots most of the way. We had 7 at times on our course over the ground. We had the tide with us. We were running with the tide. You can see the sails pulling beautifully. That's the head sail pulling beautifully. And we're on our way, heading straight for Fishguard, straight across the centre of the bay. The wind is in our favour. We need to get there before it changes, or it drops, or it gets too strong for us. You can see the hand of God pointing to Fishguard, and she's rolling a bit with the swell. The swell's coming from behind, and it's quite a good one. You can see Bardsey Island in the back of us there, and that's a good. If you're sailing looking backwards, you can keep, if you keep Bardsey Island there between the back of the boat. Look, we're making a cup of coffee. That's what's happening. Okay, so we're sailing from inside the boat using the wheel, just to adjust it if necessary, and we're trying to do all this stuff, sail and make a cup of coffee at the same time. It's pretty difficult. We've just got to keep our eye on it. The boat doesn't get away on us. There's Bardsey Island, right in the middle of the back of the boat there. Well, off to the one side, off to the right. Where it is now is perfect. Yeah. She's on course now. And she's motoring. We're doing like 6 knots while we're doing this. To the sail. It's pulling beautifully. And we're just creaming it and surfing from time to time as the swells pick us up and carry us over. And it's a perfect day, except it's just too boisterous for me, and it's too long a trip really for somebody my age. I just get too tired, and all my hands cramped up, and my feet cramped up, and my legs. It was just too much of the same. Here's our wheel steering from inside the cabin. I've made a modification to this today because I need it to be more sensitive. Now it does work. It works good, but it does need a little bit of improvement. There's Bardsey Island, still at the back. We're still on track. Once she settles down, the wheel steering just holds her there then, until she drifts off course. It's a long sail to Fishguard, and the sail's blowing us along. Sometimes it's easier to to sail off the compass, and you've just got to work out from looking at the horizon where you're heading, and the GPS, what the ideal position of the GPS. Instead of just looking at GPS, you can look at the combination of the horizon and the compass, and so the compass is very good. It's good to learn to steer to a compass. It's really a good thing to do. We've got all three. We've got the horizon, and you know, it's the end of Fishguard is at the end of that strip of mainland out there. I forget what it was, 195 or 205, something like this. We were sailing on a bearing, and it's pretty hard to hold it straight on 205. You do the best you can, and it's hard work, and I really need to get the self-steering, the autopilot, the mechanical, the electrical one. I really need to get that plugged in. I keep forgetting to plug it in, and once I'm sailing I can't really stop, and I don't want to stop and deal with it. It's too dangerous. And so I was hoping to, well, next time I get a chance, I'm going to set the tiller pilot up and see how that copes with it. It's all ready to go, it just needs to be attached, dug out of the somewhere and put in its place and plugged in. That's all it needs. But whilst we haven't got the tiller pilot, we have to do the piloting, and it's just no good for my hands. My hands, they get cramped, and I can only hold onto the tiller for so many hours, and then I get real problems. Okay, we're getting closer now to Fishguard. It looks like we're getting closer, but it's still a long way off. And it takes a long time for that strip of land to come closer and in sight properly. You can pick a couple of trees on the horizon and point yourself at that. And that gives you, and then as you get closer in, you find a more accurate thing to look at. That's the actual Fishguard entrance there, I think, that little dip. As we get to the entrance, it slackens off a bit, the wind slackens off a bit, but the sea gets quite rough, and there's a good rolling swell going into Fishguard, and as it hits a kind of a bar, and then it kicks up a bit, and so the roughest part was getting into Fishguard, really. Well, the anchor's down in Fishguard Harbour, and there's a tiny bit of swell coming through, but that's all. So quite a nice spot, really. Shame we couldn't stay a bit longer. There's the yacht club down there in the town. Fishing for the night. Well, we're at Fishguard, and there's quite a bit of a swell coming in, and we're probably better off getting out of here. So the weather conditions out there are pretty much the same as what they were yesterday, and so we know what we're in for. Now, I've tidied up a few things here, and I've changed the fuel arrangement on the outboard motor to see maybe we can solve our teething troubles of getting to know how to swap from petrol back over to kerosene. Okay. Once it's running fine. It's just our swap over that we have to master. Once I've mastered it, I'll document it in the logbook, and so the next owner can know how to deal with it. quite a few little things. This slop has brought up a few things. One thing is, if you're in a big sloppy sea, it's necessary to put the outboard motor down right onto the bottom notch, otherwise it comes out of the water and goes like this sort of thing. But if you put it on this very bottom stop, then it's okay. To get it off its bottom stop, you have to use a piece of wood because it's not built. Oops, here's our slop come. You can see why we need to get out of here, because as soon as we get side on to the swell, it's just no good. Now I could put an anchor out the side in the dinghy, but then I have to swap it every 6 hours to the other side, so I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is we're going to get out of here, go around the corner where it's going to be very nice for the next week virtually, and we're all then round the corner ready to be headed to comes a slop to what's the place called? Clan something or other. Can't remember, I have to look it up. It's where I'm going for my outboard motor. And so we're pretty much ready. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fishing rods away. I'm not going to be fishing at all whilst I'm yachting. I got the fish thing tangled up with the outboard motor and all sorts of things, so you know it's better just to have the fishing rods all packed away from under your feet, so you've got nothing in your way that you can step on, and you know, if you need to get out the back in a hurry, they're just going to get in the way. Okay, so we're off round the peninsula. We're not going through the sound, we're going to take the long way round and just have a leisurely cruise out into the ocean and back, and bypass all the dodgy bits. Okay, so we'll see you round the corner. Well, we're heading out of Fishguard for St. David's Head. And she's a push and a slog to get out. There's somebody coming in. And it's pretty hard to film and steer at the same time. It's a bit dangerous actually. There's quite a swell coming in. And so the boat's up and down and up and down. In a minute, I'll stick in. The motor's doing well. I have the motor mastered, and it took us out of here nicely. It took about half an hour to get out and used about 1.8 litres of fuel to do that, according to my reckoning. We've got the sails up now. It was a mission getting the sail up, goodness me, outside the harbour wall, but we're really creaming along. And we start off on a broad reach and we end up, like yesterday, sailing downwind, full downwind at the end into St. David's Head and Whitesands Bay. And our timing is perfect. We were pushing against the current, but the current turned and it went along the coast. And we had a good 2-knot current pushing us along the whole time, so we were doing 7 knots regularly down here. Such a lovely sail. This was perfect conditions until we got to St. David's Head, when it was just a little bit too strong the wind. But for downwind sailing, this is just glorious stuff. We're just coming up to St. David's Head at the moment, just going round it actually. There's a couple of rocks out there that you can run into if you're not careful. Of course, now because you can see them, but if we're in the night time or something like that. You see, when I film, I'm getting off course and the waves are getting me. It's a bit roly-poly out here, but it's nice. We're running with the tide. The tide's just about to turn, so go the other way. So we want to stay in Whitesands Bay whilst the tide turns. Hopefully. You can see where we're up. I don't know if you can see that. That's where we're headed. Now we're in Whitesands Bay, and thank goodness it blew up a gale in Whitesands Bay, and I had to anchor. I net out every bit of my anchor chain. You're running with the tide. Eventually it held. Lovely. And it's blowing really hard, but there's not much swell because the wind is, there's not much fetch. By fetch is how much sea there is between you and the land. There's not much fetch. So the boat is not as rocky and rolling as it was at Fishguard.